Sexual orientation of married and unmarried Muslim women from a collectivistic culture. Sexual orientation is an enduring emotional, romantic, or sexual attraction to other persons that is either inherent or immutable. Sexual orientation refers to the direction of sexual feelings or conduct toward individuals of the opposite sex, the same sex, or some combination of the two. The core components of sexual orientation include sexual attraction, sexual behavior, and sexual self-identification. Sexual orientation can be typified into three broader categories. Heterosexuals are the ones who are sexually or romantically attracted to people of the opposite sex alone. Homosexuality is having a sexual interest in the same sex as oneself. The behavior must be overtly sexual, involving erotic arousal, and culminating in the gratification of the sexual urge in most cases. Female homosexuality is sometimes referred to as lesbianism, and the term gay is frequently used as a synonym for homosexuality. The term bisexual is used to describe a person who has emotional, romantic, and/or sexual attraction to, or engages in romantic or sexual relationships with, more than one sex or gender. Apart from these three major categories of sexual orientations, there are some other specific labels as well. Pansexual are referred to people who do not consider gender as an important factor for their sexual attraction or behavior. Asexual are the ones who do not have any sexual desire at all toward any gender. Demisexual feel unable to perform sex until they are not deeply involved in love with the prospective sexual partner. Autosexual indulge in sexual pleasure with themselves. Androsexual are attractive to masculine and gynosexual are attractive to feminine features of human bodies, regardless of the gender. Sapiosexual are sexually attracted to another person's intelligence, knowledge, and wisdom. The theoretical foundations for sexual orientation are quite broad. The underlying causes of sexual orientation can be biopsychosocial. Sexual orientation is related to sex role identity, that is, sexual attraction toward women is related to masculine sex role orientation and sexual attraction toward men is related to a feminine sex role orientation. Homosexuals, on the other hand, can be strongly attracted to the sex role characteristics of their own sex. The psychoanalytic perspective focuses on the child's identification with the other sex parent. The social learning perspective argues that sexual orientation and gender behaviors arise from reinforcement effects during development, such as a mother reinforcing effeminate behaviors in a son. With reference to the biological perspective, differences in brain structures and various hypothalamic structures have been proposed to account for sexual orientation, such as the interstitial nucleus of the anterior hypothalamus. Genetic and biological mechanisms have also been proposed, and the balance of research evidence suggests that sexual orientation has an underlying biological component. Specific genes, for example, have been implicated mainly on the female X chromosome. The sexual configurations theory suggests that people may have diversified sexual orientations based on their life experiences. Sexual orientation can also change from time to time. Sexuality is an innate motivational force and the most prominent aspect of humans. It plays a very important role in one's psychosocial well-being. Sexual orientation is regarded extremely important in sexual satisfaction as it gives direction to sexual beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. Literature reveals that women are more inclined towards homosexuality or identifying as bisexual and report more same-sex attraction as compared to men. Most of the studies on sexuality, however, belong to Western individualistic cultures. Studies on Muslim sexual orientation are quite less and mostly belong to Western cultures, as studying such topics in collectivistic cultures are extremely challenging. Sexual orientation, when studies within collectivistic Muslim cultures, is usually covered under the label of attitudes towards homosexuality or bisexuality, etc. Therefore, the sexual orientation of Muslim women residing in collectivistic cultures have never been analyzed earlier. As sexual problems are considered more common in Eastern than Western cultures and collectivistic cultures reflect some unique cultural aspects to sexuality, Dr. Sukoon intended to explore and analyze the sexual orientation of women belonging to a collectivistic Muslim culture. The study was carried out in Pakistan, which is a Muslim country with collectivistic cultural values. The study had two major objectives. The first objective was to measure and highlight the sexual orientation of women belonging to a collectivistic Muslim culture, and the second objective was to analyze the role of marriage in this regard. The current study was expected to be the first ever of its nature and was deemed to be highly useful for future researchers. The study involved 762 conveniently selected women from Islamabad, Pakistan. They included married and unmarried women both. The age of the participants ranged from 18 to 52 years with an average age of 24 years. The education of the participants ranged from matriculation to PhD. The average education of the participants was 13 years of formal education. The multidimensional scale of sexuality was administered to measure sexual orientation. The scale comprises 45 items in English and identifies the respondent with one of the 9 possible sexual orientations, namely heterosexual, heterosexual with some homosexuality, concurrent bisexual, sequential bisexual, homosexual with some heterosexuality, past heterosexual currently homosexual, homosexual, past homosexual currently heterosexual, and asexual. The items of the scale focus on the behavioral and cognitive components of sexuality and deal with sexual behavior, sexual attraction, arousal to erotic material, emotional factors, sexual dreams, and fantasies. Results were calculated from 3 dimensions, which are the sexual orientation of women in general, the sexual orientation of unmarried women, and the sexual orientation of married women. The sexual orientation of women generally revealed that 38% of the understudied women were heterosexual, 14% were heterosexual with some homosexuality, 6% were concurrent bisexual, 9% were sequential bisexual, 6% were homosexual with some heterosexuality, 4% were past heterosexual currently homosexual, 4% were homosexual, 5% were past homosexual currently heterosexual, and 14% were asexual. The sexual orientation of unmarried women revealed that 36% of the understudied women were heterosexual, 14% were heterosexual with some homosexuality, 6% were concurrent bisexual, 10% were sequential bisexual, 6% were homosexual with some heterosexuality, 4% were past heterosexual currently homosexual, 4% were homosexual, 5% were past homosexual currently heterosexual, and 16% were asexual. The sexual orientation of married women revealed that 45% of the understudied women were heterosexual, 11% were heterosexual with some homosexuality, 5% were concurrent bisexual, 6% were sequential bisexual, 5% were homosexual with some heterosexuality, 3% were past heterosexual currently homosexual, 2% were homosexual, 2% were past homosexual currently heterosexual, and 5% were asexual. These calculations reflect a visible difference among the unmarried and married women, which was further verified by a statistical comparison. It was revealed that the married women were significantly more heterosexual as compared to the unmarried. The unmarried women had significantly higher trends for bisexuality, homosexuality, and asexuality as compared to the married women. Since the scale used in the study offered a bifurcation of sexual orientation based on its composition about the cognitive and behavioral aspects as well, the homosexual and bisexual trends of the understudied women were also analyzed for the composition of homosexuality and bisexuality. It was revealed that the composition of homosexuality among the understudied women involved 15% arousal to erotic material, 20% dreams and fantasies, 17% emotional factors, 22% sexual attraction, and 26% sexual behavior. The composition of bisexuality among the understudied women involved 30% arousal to erotic material, 20% dreams and fantasies, 17% emotional factors, 23% sexual attraction, and 10% sexual behavior. Age had significant positive correlation with heterosexuality and significantly inverse correlation with homosexuality and asexuality. Education had significant positive correlation with partial homosexuality, bisexuality, and significant inverse correlation with asexuality. Sexual behaviors, like gender roles, are also shaped and governed by culture. Culture determines the appropriateness and inappropriateness of sexual behaviors for both men and women. Culture, along with the religious values about sexuality, also contributes to suppress sexual assertiveness. Studies have already established the role of culture and religion in sexuality and have affirmed that the social norms of individualistic and collectivistic cultures vary significantly. People from collectivistic cultures are socially more compliant. In collectivistic cultures, marriage is regarded the only approved source for sexual satisfaction, and most of the marriages are arranged by parents. Dating, premarital, and extramarital sexual activities are extremely forbidden. The situation becomes more terrible for women. Women are usually suppressed and given less authority in most parts of the world, especially in collectivistic cultures. They are regarded as the prime sources for families' honor. They are given the submissive roles and are not expected to do any action that is culturally inappropriate for them and may bring dishonor to their families. They cannot think against the prescribed social limitations. They are prone to feel more shame than men. Married women are more expected to comply to social norms as compared to the unmarried. This is also reflected in their preferences for sexual behavior. They are sexually objectified and are expected to please men, regardless of their sexual preferences. They have more cultural challenges, more mental disorders, and lesser opportunities to overcome their psychosocial issues, as compared to men. The study by Dr. Sukoon, therefore, explored the sexual orientation of women residing in a collectivistic Muslim culture. The findings of the current study revealed that only 38% of the understudied women could be regarded as completely heterosexual. In other words, 62% of the understudied women were not completely in line with their cultural values and did have tendencies other than the conventional heterosexuality. These 62% women cannot be labeled as completely homosexual or bisexual, as their sexuality included several cognitive and behavioral aspects involved in sexual orientation, such as arousal to erotic material, dreams and fantasies, emotional attachments, sexual attraction, and sexual behavior. However, the analysis based on sexual behavior alone did reveal that, apart from being involved in heterosexual behavior, at least 9% of the understudied women were also involved in homosexual behavior, and 7% of the understudied women were also involved in bisexual behavior. A more specific analysis revealed that 2.25% of the understudied women could be labeled as completely homosexual and 1.16% of the understudied women could be labeled as completely bisexual. The earlier studies reveal that heterosexuality is the most common sexual orientation for the majority in all parts of the globe. The ratio provided in these studies ranges from 87 to 97% heterosexual in the understudied societies. Other sexual orientations are also present around the globe. Studies have considered non-heterosexual orientations as minorities, which range from 1 to 12% in different populations. Sexual orientations other than the conventional heterosexuality have also been gaining more visibility and legalization in many parts of the world. The earlier literature regarding the sexual orientation of Muslim women from collectivistic cultures is not available. Studies from the United States, however, revealed that the conventional heterosexual-only orientation has been dropping and homosexual trends have been quite visible. A meta-analysis involving data from 39 countries revealed a broad acceptance of homosexuality in North America, the European Union, and much of Latin America, but equally widespread rejection in predominantly Muslim nations and in Africa, as well as in parts of Asia and in Russia. Opinions about the acceptability of homosexuality were divided in Israel, Poland, and Bolivia. The survey also reflected a growth of 10% in the rate of homosexuality in US, Canada, and South Korea. The findings of the survey also revealed that homosexuality was more prominent in countries where religion is less central in people's lives. The role of marriage was also analyzed in the study of Dr. Sukoon, and marriage was observed as a significant factor in the sexual orientation of the understudied women. The unconventional sexual orientations such as homosexuality and bisexuality were more present among the unmarried. The literature on the role of marriage in modifying one's sexual orientation is quite silent. A few studies, however, reported that unmarried men and women were more prone to be lesbians or gays as compared to married men and women. Similar to earlier studies, the study by Dr. Sukoon has also revealed positive connections of education with homosexuality and bisexuality. The study also revealed inverse correlations of age with homosexuality and asexuality, which is also in line with the earlier studies. The study by Dr. Sukoon was the first ever effort to measure the sexual orientation of women residing in a collectivistic Muslim culture. It also analyzed the role of marriage in this regard. The findings of the study revealed that the understudied Muslim women from a collectivistic culture did possess the desires and tendencies toward homosexuality and bisexuality. However, they did not convert these desires into actual sexual behavior, due to cultural and religious values. Thanks for listening. To read the entire paper, kindly visit www.dersakoon.info.